Daniel here at Tabletop for One. Please join me at the table as I play through Welcome to Reckoning. And I thank you for joining me for Welcome to Reckoning. This is a solo-only game of 54 cards that will be coming to Kickstarter in the near future. I've been provided with a preview copy to show you today, so the components might change when it's actually published. And in Welcome to Reckoning, the town of Reckoning has discovered this magical dust in the mines beneath the ground, and the magical dust allows the warping of time, but also has disastrous side effects. And this has unfortunately led to the corruption of the town, and only you and a small posse is left, and you are trying to escape the town, but tentacles from the deep and spectral riders and fires and other disasters thwart your escape. And so in this game, you are going to try and escape, and the way you escape is on the wagon when the wagon shows up. And so what's set up here, you're going to have the 4 areas of town here, and then you're going to take 15 cards from the main deck, and you're going to take the wagon and shuffle it in there, and that's going to form the bottom half of the deck. So you take this, stick it on the bottom here. Place your rider right here, as well as this card here. I'll explain what this does in just a moment. You'll set your health and your willpower to the difficulty level that you choose. It's either 6, 5, or 4. I'm going to go ahead and set mine to 6 here on both of these. You'll take the deck of dust, draw yourself 1 dust card. It just shows dust on either side. You'll be spending this for abilities later. And then you draw 3 cards from the event deck to your hand. And that is all for the setup here. And so in Welcome to Reckoning, your goal, of course, is to leave the town of Reckoning via the wagon. The wagon will show up later in the game. It'll end up at the warehouse. And in order to use the wagon to leave the town of Reckoning, there must be no tentacles or fire here at the warehouse. You must have a 4 of a kind in your hand, so 4 of one of these numbers. And then you must visit the warehouse by either discarding a card to visit the warehouse, which I'll show you in a moment, or using an event on the event cards. And so let's talk about the event cards here. So these are the cards in my hand. These events won't happen because they're in my hand, but this is what they look like. So this one here, the Cursed Tentacles, says you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. And then the Tentacles seize the church. And so when Tentacles seize a building, you're going to take the card and you're going to slide it under here to show that the Tentacles have seized this building. Now, when this happens, you may not use a building that has tentacles on it or that has fire on it. And so with that in mind, we'll look at this card here, the Flame Tentacle. It says you may visit a location and then set the mind and assayer on fire, and the tentacle seize the homestead. So you'll take any card set on fire, flip it over to the fire side. Now both of those buildings are not accessible. And then of course this card says that it'll take over the homestead. And then this other card here shows another effect here that says draw the top card of the discard pile. And then lose 2 health or willpower. And so at that point you would just turn your card to the appropriate number to indicate you've lost willpower. And there are a whole bunch of other kinds of events, and we'll encounter them as I play, but that gives you a good idea of how that works out. And with every event, you're always going to encounter everything on the card, top to bottom. You can't skip over any of it, except for certain situations. So your character card, once per round, can be flipped over to ignore one effect on the event card this round. And so you'll choose that every now and then, so you have to be careful when you use that. But then you have some other options here. You're able to consume dust. You start out with the game with 1 dust. You're able to gain dust later via the mine or the homestead. But you'll use the dust to do one of these abilities here. So this one says remove a tentacle from a location, remove a tentacle or rider from the event row, or draw a card. And so you'll spend the dust by moving it over, and the dust then becomes corruption. I'll explain what that means in just a moment. And then there's another option that you can do once per round. You'll rotate this card when using this effect and then reset it at the start of the round. So you just kind of turn it sideways like that. And you can either visit a building and resolve its effect that doesn't have tentacles of fire, of course, or put out a fire at a location card. And so you'll be discarding cards every now and then, especially for removing fire. With that in mind, let's talk about your health, your willpower, fire, and all that, and how that all plays together. Because all those things tie into how you lose the game. So your willpower here tells you how much corruption you can endure. So if my willpower is 6, I can have 6 corruption here. The moment it exceeds my willpower, the game ends and I lose. Your health here tells you how long you're going to live. So if I take too much damage and it goes down to 0, then I lose the game. Buildings on fire at the end of the round. If there's at least one building on fire, you're going to take 1 damage at the end of the round. And the other way to lose the game is if you run out of the deck here. So you're going to be spending a lot of time managing your resources, managing your health, gaining health, spending health, putting out fires, avoiding tentacles, and let's go ahead and see how this plays out. And so at the beginning of the round, you're going to go ahead and draw 5 cards into the row here. And you're going to encounter these cards one at a time. So with my character here, you're just going to move down, and as you resolve each card, you'll discard the card. So this one here is drastic measures, and it says that you may select a location that is not on fire, set that location on fire, and remove all tentacles from those buildings. Now, I don't have any tentacles on any buildings. I forgot to flip that over. And this card says that you may do this, so I don't need to do it. I'm going to go ahead and discard that card, and we'll move on to the next location. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that you're able to do these options here before or after resolving any event card, but not during an event card. So keep that in mind. And so for me, I'm going to go ahead and consume a dust and get rid of this card because there's no benefit on this card. This card causes tentacles at the warehouse, which I don't want at the warehouse. And then it sets a card on fire. So I'm just going to skip that altogether by consuming that dust. And we move on to the next one. And so the next one is the Doom Riders, and the Doom Riders say, discard a random card from my hand, and then lose a combination of health and or willpower equal to my current corruption. So now I want to look ahead at these cards here, because I have the ability to flip over my character and ignore one of these effects on these cards. Not the whole card, just one of the effects. And so losing that health or willpower is not good. Discarding a random card from my hand isn't the greatest, but it doesn't really affect me much right now. Now this card's going to set the mine and assayer on fire, but I think I can deal with that. And then this last one says tentacles seize the assayer and lose 2 health. I think that's the effect that I want to skip this round. So we'll go ahead and resolve this one completely. I'm going to discard a card at random from my hand, and we'll go with this one. It's the 2. And then I lose a combination of health and or willpower equal to my current corruption. I'll just go ahead and lose 1 health, and now I'm down to 5. So this card gets discarded. I move along, and now it says I can draw the top card of the discard pile. Well, that's kind of nice, because now I have a pair of 7s, and that's going to be helpful in trying to get that 4 of a kind. And then it says to set the mine and assayer on fire. So we'll discard that and flip this over, and we'll move along. So the first thing I want to do is I want to exercise my discard ability here. So we're going to turn this sideways, and it lets me either visit a building that's not on fire or has tentacles, or I can put out a fire at a location. And I definitely want to put out this fire because I don't want to lose any health at the end of the round. So I'm going to go ahead and discard my 4, and then we'll flip this over. And now this card says I can visit a location. So I want to choose which location I want to visit. I definitely would like some more health or willpower, but at the same time, I do not have any dust. So we're going to go ahead and visit the mine here, which lets me gain 2 dust or reduce my corruption by 1. So I'll gain the 2 dust here. And then I'll flip over my character here to ignore the negative effect on this card, and this card gets discarded. So at the end of the round, you're going to suffer losses, and the way that works is you're going to check to see if you have any buildings on fire. If there's at least one building on fire, you lose 1 health, but I put out that fire. And then you're going to check your hand to see if you have more than 5 cards. If you do, you have to discard down to 5 cards, and I only have 2 cards, so we're safe there. So now we're going to reset, so we turn this card back up, flip my character back over and set him over here, and then we're going to draw back up to 5 cards. And then we continue the game. So this first one here is one of the beneficial cards. This card says that you may remove all tentacles from one location or discard 1 rider card from the event row, and then draw this card. So this card is going to go into my hand. There are no tentacles at location, so we just get rid of one of these riders here. And so this rider gains dust, and I lose 2 willpower. Or this rider lets me draw a card and I lose 2 health or 2 willpower. I like having that option, and especially drawing a card. I have enough dust right now, so we'll go ahead and get rid of this one. Then we're going to move along here, and this one says that if the wagon is at the warehouse, shuffle it back into the event deck. This is a very disastrous card, and thankfully the wagon is not out yet, so this just gets removed. Alright, so the Wailing Wind here says that I may discard a card to remove the next card from the event row, and then any location next to a location on fire is now on fire. Well, you know what? That's not so bad, because nothing happens. I'm not going to discard a card right now to remove this card, because I think I want to actually draw the card, and I'll just skip the effect at the bottom with my ability. So this event round has really helped me out. So we're just going to let this one discard and move along. Now we're going to go ahead and resolve this one here. It says draw a card, so I'll draw this one and add it to my hand. It's a 10. I don't really need a 10. And then we'll flip this over to ignore the ability on the bottom and discard this. But before the round ends, remembering that I can resolve one of these after any event card. So that was the last event card. We're going to go ahead and discard a card by turning this. And we'll discard this, let's go with the 9. And we're going to visit a building. So once again, I'm looking at my health and stuff. I'm okay there. I think I'm going to trade a card from my hand with one in the discard. That's the ability of the warehouse. It's a very useful ability in trying to get your 4 of a kind. So I'm going to trade this 10 that I had in my hand. I want to go for another 7 here, and there was a 7 earlier. So we're going to add this to my hand. And now I have a 3 of a kind. So we're working our way there, and that gets discarded. Alright, we do not suffer any losses because I only have 3 cards in my hand and nothing's on fire, so we're going to go ahead and reset for the next round. Alright, so I think my luck has run out for this next situation here. So, this Spectral Mist here, the first location that we're going to is, or first event, is you may discard a card. If you do, you may visit 2 locations. That is really tempting. Now, the problem is I lose 2 willpower after, and I don't want to lose a lot of willpower, but I'm not going to skip that. Now, the question is, do I want to discard one of my 7s to visit 2 locations? Visiting 2 locations is very powerful. Oh, that's a tough call. I think I'm going to skip it. Yeah, it says I may do it I think I'm going to skip that, but that also means I go ahead and lose 2 willpower, so I'm down to 4 now. And then this card gets discarded and we move on. Now this one here says that I may visit a location and then the saloon and warehouse are on fire and tentacles seize the mine. So with that in mind, I'll probably want to look at visiting the saloon or the warehouse while I have the chance. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and visit the church and gain some willpower back. And so that'll bring me up to 6. And so we'll go ahead and set this on fire. And then the tentacles are going to seize the mine. And since I brought my willpower back up, I think I'm going to go ahead and consume a dust here to get rid of a tentacle card in my events row here. And so this one's going to go. It's got 2 negatives on it. I just don't want to encounter it, so that's gone. And so now I'm having to look at these 2 cards here and decide which one I want to cancel the effect on with my ability. Or maybe I want to remove one of these with another dust. It's really a difficult choice. See, this one wants me to place a card from my hand at the end of the event row. I really don't want to break up my 3 of a kind for that. And so I definitely want to skip that. But this one also gives me a dust, and then I lose a combination of health and willpower, or willpower equal to my current dust. I'll have 2 dust at that point. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 dust right now, and then get rid of this card here completely. Then I will gain a dust, and I will flip over my character to cancel out that effect at the bottom. And now we're at the end of the round, and we have to suffer losses. So this card is on fire. That means I lose 1 health, and that's going to bring me down to 4 health. This one has tentacles. That doesn't cause any losses, but just remembering I can't use the mine until I get rid of the tentacles. And now we're ready to go ahead and reset, so we'll bring my card back here and add the event row. Alright, and so the wagon showed up at the end of the event row, and this is what happens. It says, if drawn, place this card immediately at the warehouse and end the turn. Then you're going to shuffle the discard and event deck together and start a new round. And so it gets added here. I'm just going to place it above it here. And then this all gets discarded. The whole deck gets added together, but here's the problem. It ends the round, which means we go straight into losses again, which means I lose another health from the fire. And so now we're down to 3 health. So we got to be careful. We're at 6 willpower and 3 corruption. Things are getting a little dicey here. And so I'll go ahead and shuffle the deck and then repopulate for the next round. Wow, things are really tough here. Now my 7 that I need is right here. So we definitely want to look into getting this card. It's going to take us going to the warehouse or some other way of drawing the card from the discard pile. Now this card here, the Sabotage, this one's brutal. So it says to discard 2 spades or 1 club from the hand to discard this card, or add dust from the reserve to the corruption pile per rider in play. Now look at the riders here. We have 1, 2, and 3 riders here. So if I add that much corruption, that's going to put me at my max. And I don't think I want to do that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and spend dust right now to just get rid of Sabotage. That's gone. Because I didn't want to get rid of the club that I had in my hand, because that's part of my 3 of a kind. Now this next card here says I can draw a card, and it's a 3. And then I lose 1 health or 1 willpower. We'll go ahead and lose 1 health. And this moves along, and we'll discard this card. Alright, this card says I may visit a location and then set the church and bell tower on fire. Oh, and then the tentacle sees the church. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and visit a location. First, we're going to bump up. Oh gosh. Let's visit the homestead. That'll give us a combination. I can choose 2 of willpower, health, and dust. They just can't be the same. So we'll gain 1 willpower there and 1 health. And then I will go ahead and flip this over and cancel out the bottom action there. Now this next one lets me gain a dust, and we'll go ahead and gain that. But then it's telling me to lose 2 willpower. So that's going to bring me down to 5. And I have 4 corruption. I got to be really careful with that. Oh, I should have looked ahead. I did not look ahead. I already used my ability. This card here says if the wagon's at the warehouse, shuffle it back in. So there it goes. So now the wagon's back in here. If it gets revealed again, all the reveal effects happen again. So it'll go to the warehouse, it'll end the round, and we get to shuffle the decks again. So we're moving along here. Before I get to this one here, I want to look at my options. I think I'll go ahead and use my discard option here, discarding this card to take this one off of fire. I don't want to take another damage at the end of the round. And now this card here says to add the top card of the event deck after this card. I may not avoid that card's effects. So we'll go ahead and add that on. And it's Wraith Riders. And the Wraith Riders say you may discard a card to visit a location even if the building has tentacles, and then lose 2 willpower. Well, if I lose 2 willpower at this point, I will lose the game, because that'll bring my willpower below my corruption. So I have 2 options. I can either spend the dust to get rid of that rider, or no, I can't actually, because the ambush riders said I can't avoid those effects. So this happens. So I definitely have to discard a card to visit the church. And so we'll go ahead and discard one of my 7. So we'll visit the church, gaining 2 willpower, but then I go ahead and lose it again from the Wraith Riders here. And oh man, that just made things difficult. Now I don't have any losses at the end of the round, and we'll go ahead and reset. And the wagon came out on the 4th card, so we'll set that up here. Thankfully, I put out all fires, so I'm not going to suffer any damage as the round ends right now. Alright, with the deck reshuffled into the discard pile and everything, we're going to go ahead and repopulate the board. Alright, so we've seen the Wailing Wind here. Again, it says you may discard a card to remove the next card from the event row. And any location next to a location on fire is now also on fire. I'm just going to go ahead and let that all happen because it doesn't affect me. This next one says you may take a diamond card from the discard pile. Too bad that 7 here is not in there. Or can I make it happen? Ooh, check out that combo. If I go ahead and spend this dust before I resolve this, then this gets discarded. Now we resolve this and I add that to my hand. Ooh, nice. And now I had to add one card to the event row and Tentacles seize the Assayer. So we add a card here. And then the tentacles are going to go underneath here. And now both these buildings have tentacles, so I can't go to either of them. Just a reminder, I am at 5 corruption here and 5 willpower. So I really have to be careful what happens next. I hate to do it, but I have no choice. I'm going to use my discard ability right now to visit the church and gain 2 willpower. If I don't, I'm going to lose this game. And now the ruined tentacles happen here, and they seize the warehouse, and then the church and bell tower get set on fire. So we'll add these here, and so I'll have to remove these tentacles in order to access the wagon later, and then this gets set on fire. And I go ahead and gain 1 dust from this card here, or I could have gained 2 dust if I added another card to the end of the event row. I don't think I want to do that. And this last one says I may discard a card to visit a location even if it has tentacles. I don't really care to do that right now because I don't want to discard either of my 7s. Maybe I should have gone for a different number. The 7s aren't helping me. But I definitely want to avoid losing 2 willpower, so we'll flip over my card for that last effect, and this gets discarded. Now I am going to lose 1 health for the church and bell tower being on fire, and then we'll go ahead and reset the board. Alright, so this first card says I may visit a location. We'll go ahead and visit the blacksmith, which says I can take a card from the bottom of the discard pile. And so it's this card here, number 4. And then it says set the mine and assayer on fire, tentacles seize the homestead. Oh my goodness, I really want to avoid that. So we'll go ahead and flip over my card and then discard this. This next one says I may consume 1 dust to discard this card and heal to full. Yes, I will do that because I am at 7 willpower now with 6 dust. That's still okay. And so this gets discarded. So the ability doesn't happen, or the negative effect doesn't happen. And I heal to full, which is 8. Ooh, that was really good. We're moving along. I get to gain a dust here. And then the tentacles seize the blacksmith. And so we'll set that here. And so this one here is one of the other really beneficial cards. It says discard the last card in the event row. Of course, if this was the last card, that wouldn't be so helpful. But then it says you may visit a location. If it's on fire, extinguish it. So that's really useful. So we go ahead and discard this card. And then we'll visit, I think we'll visit the bell tower here. Extinguishing this. The bell tower lets me discard a tentacle from the building. And we'll go ahead and discard this tentacle here. And so this gets discarded as well. So we don't suffer any losses at this point, and we'll go ahead and reset the board. Alright, so the first card says, these are the blood tentacles, and they say you may lose a health or willpower to draw a card, usable only once, and then they're going to seize the saloon. So we'll go ahead and use a health since I'm at full health. We're going to draw a card, and that's a 6 here. And then they'll seize a saloon, which is okay, I think, because that gives me health, and I don't really need health right now. Alright, so this next one, reinforcements. It says I may remove all tentacles from 1 location or discard 1 rider card from the event row. And then I get to draw this card. Ooh, that's really tempting. I could discard both of these here. That might be helpful. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's look at the rider card from the event row. It's this one here, the Corpse Riders, which says you may swap a card from your hand with the top card from the discard pile, and then place a card from your hand at the end of the event row. I think we'll go ahead and remove all tentacles from a location, and we'll remove these ones here. And then I get to draw this card, and we'll move along. And before we do anything right now, I think I'm going to go ahead and use my discard ability. And we're going to discard one of these cards. I'll discard this one here to go to the warehouse, and it says I can trade a card from my hand with 1 from the discard, and we'll discard that 9 I just got with the 7 of hearts, and now I have 3 7s. And now there's no 7s in the discard pile, so we know 1's in here, so hopefully I'll get it soon. With that in mind, it says I may visit a location. I will visit the Assayer, which lets me draw a card, and it's a 2. And then Tentacles sees the Assayer, and I lose 2 health, and that's okay. Brings me down to 5. Alright, I kind of planned myself this way, so I may swap a card from my hand with the top card from the discard pile. And we'll swap this one here with that 9 that I put down, the reinforcements. And then it says I place a card from my hand at the end of the event row. Well, let's go ahead and place that one there. And so this gets discarded. We move along. And so the Spectral Mist here says I may discard a card. If I do, visit 2 locations. We'll go ahead and discard a card, the 4 here, and go to the bell tower, discarding this tentacle from the Assayer. And then I'll go to the Assayer and draw a card. And may it be a 7? Nope, it's another 4. Now it wants me to lose 2 willpower. I can't afford that. We'll go ahead and flip this over, and that ends that. And so again, with the reinforcements, I may remove all tentacles from 1 location. Let's go ahead and take this one out. And then I get to draw this card. Alright, so now we're going to look at Suffering Losses. I only have 5 cards, so I don't have to discard any. Nothing's on fire. We're looking pretty good, but the deck is running low, so we have to be careful. Let's go ahead and reset. Alright, this doesn't look really good for me right now, but we have to be careful what happens next. So the Firestorm here, this is a brutal card because it wants to set the Blacksmith and Homestead on fire and the Saloon and Warehouse on fire. We definitely don't want the Saloon and Warehouse on fire. We'll go ahead and let the Blacksmith go on fire, and then we'll flip over my card to skip the Saloon and Warehouse going on fire. The Spectral Riders here let me draw a card, which is a 5. And then lose 2 health or 2 willpower. We'll go ahead and lose 2 health, bringing me down to 3, and we'll move along. Alright, before we go further, let's see if we can win this thing out here. Alright, so one thing I want to do is I want to use my last dust I have. That puts me at the max. I have 7 willpower and 7 corruption now. But we're going to remove a rider from the row, and we're going to remove the 7, the one I need, and place it in the discard pile. And then we'll go ahead and activate this here, and this says you may visit a location even if it's on fire. We'll visit the warehouse, and we'll trade a card with 1 from the discard, and we'll go ahead and grab that Ghost Rider and put it in my hand. And now I have a 4 of a kind. That's 4 7s there. So all we need to do is get to the warehouse, but this card has to finish here. So it says add the top card of the discard to the event row, and then the Tentacle sees the Saloon. So we add this over here. The Tentacles are going to seize the Saloon. And then before we do this, we're going to go ahead and discard a card to go visit a building. We're going to visit the warehouse. And we have our 4 of a kind. The wagon's there. It's not on fire. There are no tentacles at the warehouse. And we win the game. And so there you have it. That is a solo playthrough of Welcome to Reckoning. Keep an eye out for Welcome to Reckoning in the near future. I will do a preview video where I give my impressions of the game, and I'll let you know the date of that. Ask me any questions in the comments below. Please also like and subscribe to this channel if you like the content you see here. And I thank you very much for watching Tabletop for One. Have a great night.